All right. Hi again.
I'm Todd.
So tell me about your week. What happened? How have things been? I know you said you had rewatched the video at some point, so
Yes, actually, my last week was pretty good. I stayed with that feeling. This time I didn't run away. I spent as much time as I felt was necessary to feel that sensation, and it just disappeared. Maybe it lasted for 1 or 2 more days after our talk, and it was gone by itself. And the rest of the week, I felt pretty good. I did go on Liberation Unleashed, and I find those videos very, very helpful. And I rewatched Direct Experiencing several times. And I was doing that anytime I would remember, I would just, notice thinking, seeing, hearing, and it really grounded me. And so the week went pretty good, I believe, thanks to that grounding using direct experience, not being lost in thinking as much.
wonderful.
Yeah, and yesterday I had interesting experience, which I thought we can talk about and kind of see where identification is there.
Yes, please. Absolutely.
So yesterday, I felt really big stomach ache, and then I felt the sensation, and I was in sensation for several minutes, like trying to figure out what's going on. Is it something I ate, or but I didn't think. I was just sensing.
Mhm.
And then few minutes later, I could hear a thought. It felt like someone was standing beside me. That's how it was. Oh, I have such a strong stomach ache. I was like, what? But it was like someone else was standing there, and it was almost comical. Like I was like, thank you for letting me know. If I waited for this voice to tell me what's going on, like it's so late, like that narration, that verbalization of what is happening. It seems that there is such a long gap, and it's almost comical. Like, who are you even telling? Like, you come so late. So that was interesting because that thought sounded, so much not like me. But then something else, like a thought came. Oh, this pain that feels like me for sure. And then I guess I tried to mentally understand, how is it even possible that this is not my body? And I was trying to figure out my body, because I feel sensations in this body. I feel pain of this body. I don't feel pain of anybody else, and other people can't feel my pains and whatever I'm experiencing. So it just seemed so logical that this is my body. So from what I understand, like identification with that thinking and narration is gone. It's funny actually, and in many times it's so comical. But identification with the body and sensations may be still here. So maybe that's something what we can explore together today.
Absolutely. Oh, that's so good. That is so good. That was such a great insight that you had because we, we do. It's like just as you said, a lot of times there is that sort of secondary narrator just telling us things that we already know. And it's like, I'm so hungry. There's already been a sensation in the stomach. You're already going to get food. And then there's still this extra thought of, I was like, well, why? Who is that for? Who is that for? So yeah,
Mhm.
it's so wonderful that you saw that. That's great.
It's so late. There is such a big gap between experience and that thought.
Yeah, but notice too that sometimes that's a self-reinforcing cycle. So, notice that
Yeah.
especially with certain emotions, like somebody says something to you that really riles you up, and then over the course of the next day, you're reminding yourself how angry you are over that. I'm still so angry about this thing. Well, what is that doing? That's reinforcing the anger. It's reinforcing the victimhood, and it's reinforcing that sense of me who's still clinging on to this, to this slight that somebody did to us, some sort of thing. And so notice if there's still identification with the emotionality and with some of those thoughts, because it's great that you saw like that one about, that one popped up, but notice if you have other ones about other bodily states or emotions that seem to also keep pointing back to that fact that, I am hungry, or I'm tired. I mean, we say that all the time. It's like, oh, I'm so tired.
Mhm.
Yeah, you just yawned, right? Like you knew that already. So who is it that's reinforcing that to themselves?
Yeah, that's interesting, and yeah, and I don't know, it's so entertaining in a way, uh, but like I would like to see like it does like this is the reason we feel this is my body because we feel those things. This is my whoever I am. I have no idea who I am, but it is experienced here. So that's why it feels my body, because it's experienced through these five senses plus this mind. So, I mean, how do we not identify with that?
Well, let me immediately undercut that by asking, so yes, there are sensations of a body, but by saying that they are my sensations of my body, that my is the assumption. There are sensations appearing
Okay.
of a body, but the
Mhm.
question is, are they really indicative of there being an owner of those sensations?
Yeah, I don't know how to say differently because I have to use that language, but I don't experience your pain, Todd, and you don't experience my pain. So how can we say it and understand what we are talking about?
It's not about the language. I know what you're saying, but it's not about the language. It's about, do you actually experience your pain? This is going a step below that. There's an
Oh, okay,
assumption
okay, okay, okay,
that
okay.
there is a me here who's experiencing there's a Todd who's experiencing Todd's pain and a Tonka who's experiencing Tonka's pain. Well, let's look for that Tonka. Where is that? So when you have that, I mean, do you have any pain in your body right now?
No,
Okay. I'm
let
happy
me
to hear that, but it
see.
would also be easier for the inquiry if you did.
Yeah, I'm sure I can find it if I take few minutes. There is a lot of pain and ache lately in this body. It wouldn't be hard to find some pains.
No, no, but we don't have to just use pain. We can use positive
Yeah,
sensations, neutral
any. Yeah,
sensations as well. It's any
yeah,
sensations in the
any.
body.
Mhm.
So, so can you find, like right now, and it might help to close your eyes, but can you find any sensations in the body right now that feel particularly vivid?
My feet and maybe my face, they are more noticeable.
Okay, good. Um, Notice now. So let's take your feet, for example, because this will be a little bit more obvious. Um, First of all, can you describe the sensations that you're experiencing in the feet?
It's kind of burning, buzzing. It's not unpleasant or pleasant. It's just stronger than other parts of my body.
Good. Now, Do you feel like there's a sense of ownership of those sensations at the moment?
No, not really.
Okay. Now, if you put on that thought that these are my feet and my sensations, and Todd can't feel what I'm feeling, that's a thought. You have nothing in your direct experience that actually indicates that I can't feel what your feet are feeling.
Not in direct experience.
No. So, in your experience now, you have sensations in your feet. Can you actually tell with your eyes closed, just feeling those sensations, that those sensations are even happening in your feet?
Not in my feet. Sensations are there, but in my feet is added.
Good. If you really focus in on those sensations and feel as closely into the actual the sensations themselves, can you even tell what size or shape your feet are and if there is any connection to those sensations at all?
No, it's changing.
Good.
It's like a sensation keeps changing the size and even intensity.
Good. Do you notice that there's a little mental overlay, maybe like an image in your mind about what your feet look like?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. And you see how that doesn't really match up with the sensations that you're feeling?
No, it's just putting it in. Yeah, I can see how I make an image of my feet where sensations are.
Good. Now, still focusing in on those sensations, does it feel like they are somewhere below your head, or do the sensations feel sort of down there in a
Yes,
located in a space?
yes.
Do you have a sense of where you are observing them from?
Yeah, it feels like from my head area.
Mm-hmm. Good. So holding on to those sensations in the feet, be aware of that supposed distance between where you are observing the sensations from and the sensations themselves. And turning it around, try to look at the place from which you are looking from. Where exactly in your experience do you seem to be looking down at those sensations from?
The distance changes, and the place where I'm looking from is still kind of behind my eyes, but I can see that I may be imagining that and making it up.
Hmm. Yeah. And this spot that feels like it's behind your eyes, let's put our attention there now and see in as close of detail as possible, where exactly is that sensation located?
it's more like observer of the sensation.
Mm-hmm. And where is that located?
It felt like behind my eyes, but if I go there, I can't find anything.
Mm. Don't just pass over that. So it feels like there's something there. And when you look for it, what's really there?
Just some shades, like black, or like the shades that usually I experience when I have closed eyes. That's all I can notice there.
Good. Now, do those shades, that black and maybe any other little bubbles of color that show up, are they really in that spot behind your eyes? Where are they appearing?
No, they are not limited to behind the eyes.
Good.
It's getting bigger and bigger now when I look. Like I feel that blackness is just expanding.
Good. Does it feel like you're still observing something from somewhere behind the eyes and the head?
No, it's becoming more spacious then.
Good. Keeping that expanding sense of spacious feeling and even the expanding black of the visual field, can you still get a sense for the sensations in your feet that were there?
Yeah, I can sense into my feet.
Is there any way to tell now whether you are observing those sensations in the feet from the vantage point of your head or someplace behind your eyes?
A little bit, but it's kind of blending in. More I'm staying in this state, uh, it starts to bleed into each other.
Good. If it does start to reinforce that sense of observer behind the eyes, you can always turn around again and look for that, whatever sensation it is behind the eyes that seems to be the observer.
Yeah, it's more and more one field.
Beautiful. So is there any sense of ownership over any of those sensations or visual shades or colors.
No, it's very neutral here.
Good. And do you recognize that in your experience right now, there's no way to tell if anybody else even exists or if they have any access to your experience or not?
I wouldn't be able to have direct experience of that. I don't think so.
Good. So if thoughts about my body and my pain and my sensations versus your sensations come up, just recognize that that's not something that you can experience directly. That's just concept. It's just thought.
Can a thought be true?
Sure, some thoughts can be true, but for these practices, we're looking for what is actually available to our experience, because what we do know conceptually is that this idea of separate self, this idea of identification is not true. And we know it conceptually, but in order to really experience it viscerally, we have to undercut those beliefs and those thoughts every time they show up, because we're so locked into believing them without questioning them. So for this, when we're working with direct experience, we distrust all thoughts for a bit and just come back to what's actually here. Because as you discovered when you were hearing your voice narrating from outside the body next to you, there can very easily become identification with those thoughts. And it can be difficult to tell if a thought is really true or if it's just persuasive because we've heard it so many times before. And something does seem to happen when we are able to release from thoughts and find a place of stillness, because thinking tends to reinforce the self. And in those moments when there are no thoughts, it's one more sometimes shocking indication that what we thought to be me is sometimes not there. So if I'm completely locked into believing the internal narration and feel like this voice is Todd and the things that this voice says are Todd, then even when the voice says something that's completely outlandish, it's still going to be believed as being true because it came from me. So to get rid of that identification and that just immediate belief in anything that comes out of our own voice, we set it all aside and recognize, as you did yesterday, that these thoughts happen most of the time too late to actually be of consequence, and that they are no indication of a self or an owner of the body or experience. But while we're here, let's go back into the sensations. And again, feeling the sensations of, well, where are the strongest sensations in the body that you can feel right now?
Right now, it's in my face.
Okay, good. Can you describe those sensations?
It's almost like pulsating. Yeah, more like pulsating. And I feel warmth.
Can you tell from where it is that you are observing those sensations?
With the face, it feels more like one. There is not a lot of distance like it was with my feet. I don't know if it's because my eyes are there or it's something else.
Get really subtle with it. Does it feel like there's any space between, well, yeah. So is there any space between the sensations and where the sensations are being known?
No,
Okay. Do the sensations feel like they are happening somewhere in front of you or behind you or above or below or left or right?
I can't find location. Just there.
Good. Can you see that mental image of your face in your mind and how it's being mapped in space?
It's very distorted. I have my image of my face, but not like it's very, very wide and distorted, not even like a face anymore.
Does it seem to correspond in any way to the sensations that you're feeling?
No, not really. Just a frame.
Can you sense anywhere in your experience something that feels like the experiencer of those sensations? Something that feels in any way separate or claiming ownership or myness of those sensations?
Doesn't feel like there is anybody claiming it, but there is a subtle feeling of beingness and sensation being melded together. So maybe I'm making a division here with being and sensations, but it feels like that is still two.
Tell me more about this feeling of beingness.
Beingness is more like a space, it's just there, no form at all. But then the sensations are something noticeable, even though the form is not very strong. There is something there that I can talk about.
Would you say that the sensations are appearing within the space of this beingness?
Yes.
And how far does this feeling of beingness extend?
Yeah, I can't find the end to it.
Does it extend outside the confines of your room?
Yes.
In which sense field are you noticing this feeling of beingness?
Feeling?
Good. Holding this sense of beingness, do you have a clear sense of the outlines of your body?
No.
Can you tell then where the sensations of the body end and this feeling of beingness begins?
There is no dividing between them.
So, how can you be sure that what you are experiencing as beingness isn't sensations of the body?
Sensations are much stronger. Like they have different, like beingness doesn't have anything descriptive there, but sensations do feel like something.
you can't describe the feeling of beingness, and yet it seems to be in the felt sense. How are you aware of it?
It's a very thin, very, very light sensation or feeling. It's more like if we are under the water, so being would be the water, and then a sensation would be a fish. You know, it's much stronger. You can see it, you can feel it, you can sense it. Water, you could still sense it, but it's just so pale in comparison. But it is there.
Does it seem like you are aware of this beingness from a central location?
I can feel both ways from the what I imagine where my body is, and also from outside of confinement of my body. I don't. I'm imagining here. I guess.
Notice how much of your experience, both of the beingness and the centrality of your experience, how much of both of those come from mental overlays.
Yeah, it does feel like overlay.
Notice if there's a very subtle image in the mind of either the body or a very subtle image of the oceanic expanse that is being called beingness. If you sense that feeling of beingness and take any labels off of it, don't worry about your description of it. Just notice if it changes the sensation of it. Don't delineate between bodily sensation or beingness. Just feel what you feel.
becomes more clear, lighter. It's like me wanting to talk about that, adds heaviness to it, adds something that is not there in the moment. And I just leave it alone, and it's more clear, cleaner. Clean comes to mind, but it just seems less polluted with anything.
Nice. Now, in that light, clear spaciousness, can you find anything that indicates ownership or identification?
No, not there.
Can you notice anything else in the body or other thoughts that are trying to claim ownership of this sensation?
Just thought it's much nicer there, but not a claim. It's more like description.
So you have a thought about it being nicer than what?
Yeah, I'm comparing to the one where I was trying to describe that beingness. It seems like I made it polluted, not clean by my descriptions. So I'm comparing to that what I remember.
So does this unpolluted, clean, open, spacious sense give you any indication that it's a Tonka?
No, nothing personal there.
And is there any way to tell that no one else isn't experiencing the same thing right now?
Yeah, I wouldn't know anything what other people would experience.
Now, still observing that open, spacious, light, clear feeling. Tune in again to any place that you feel physical sensations in the body. And notice if you feel more connected to them, more ownership over them.
This clear space that we are talking about brings lightness to everything else that may be experienced. any sensation feels much lighter in presence of it.
But is there anything identified about any of the other sensations that still exist?
Not in this moment.
Is there anything in your experience right now, not just in the body, but anywhere else, that feels as though there is an experiencer of this moment separate from the experience?
Not experience. There is hearing. I can hear words. I can hear mindfulness, but it's just the verb. It's experiencing.
Good. Tuning into that hearing sense for a moment. Notice whatever sounds are being heard. Where do they seem to be heard from? Is there a central point?
I do feel that there is a reference point where I imagine my body to be.
Can you get more detailed? Is there a very specific reference point? Can you get a sense of where in space that's imagined to be?
Where I feel sensations of the body, like where I sit, I feel sensation there. I feel sensation in my face, in my hands, and all that together, I make an image of my body, and everything is kind of referenced to that. That's the starting point and comes back to it.
Good that you see that. And so you find that even when you are hearing sounds, that they are being experienced from some sort of centralized reference point that relates to the physical sensations of muscular tension throughout the body.
Sound is I can't locate the sound, it's all around, but somehow there is this reference point that kind of
So look deeply at that reference point. Is it a thought? Is it a feeling? Is it
sensation, sensations, and there is kind of visual. It's just dark, like kind of black, like a pool, almost like a pool.
Mm. And if you let that thought fall away, that mental image that seems to be pulling together all of the sensations, what's underneath that? Is there anything really gluing together all of the sensations of the body?
I can't find anything, but it must be a belief or something. It's experienced. You can't really find it in direct experience.
Good. So tour the body where you feel the weight pushing against the seat of the chair. If you feel buzzing in the face, if you feel tension in the back, whatever you feel, allow awareness to skim across these things. And when it does, notice if again there is a quick mental image of that body part that shows up in the mind, trying to correlate with those sensations. And if you can notice the disconnection between them, let the mental image fall or be there, but not be believed, and just stay in the physical sensations of the body and be very aware of whether the physical sensations that you are experiencing are in any way connected or tied together with the others, or if they in any way fit the shape and image of your body that you usually hold to be representative of it.
I can see how my mind tries to make a picture of my hand. It's such a bad picture. I would be a bad artist for sure. Almost like a cartoon. Like it's no, it's. I can see that my mind is making that image, and it's not even a believable image.
Good.
But it's still there.
Okay. It can be there, but immediately come to the actual physical sensations and notice how different they are from that cartoonish mental image. And notice if those physical sensations give you any reason to think that there is an identity connected to them, or an observer or an experiencer of them.
I would have to start thinking and making a story and concepts in order to make anything out of it.
Mm.
It's just sensation. I can't say that I know anything other than recognition of how it feels. Anything else, I feel I would be just making up
Good.
the things that I don't even know, and I don't feel that I have a way to know.
Very good.
Speculating, I feel, but I really don't want to do that.
Mm. Now, when the one who relates their sensations about these things talks, is there any feeling of ownership of those words?
No, they just come.
Does there seem to be anyone who is experiencing or relating their experience of the non experience?
Not now.
So, where are you right now?
I don't think I can tell you.
You don't have to. Stay in that open, ambiguous state where you can't find anything that feels like a self. And let that realization deepen and sink in. If you sometimes feel like a self and other times don't, well, then can the self really exist?
No, probably I will have to go back and confirm it
And that's why
more
we do.
times.
mm, That's why we do the inquiry practices over and over, is to confirm and see this for ourselves again and again. That no, there really is no self. Does it feel like there is someone now who understands that there is no self as compared to somebody who didn't understand it an hour ago?
No, but there is still a question. I can't say there is someone. There is something, and I wonder what the something is. I don't know if it's useful or not, but it does. I'm just curious. It's not that I feel it's someone, but something is there.
You're in a good space to explore that now. Can you tell me more about what that something feels like?
It's like just presence, aliveness, beingness, but it is something. It is something, not someone, but it is something.
Is this the same as the beingness that you felt before?
Yes, I wonder if it like doesn't feel personal at all, but it feels like there is. I don't know what it is, but there is. And if I would negate that, then it just doesn't feel right.
You don't have to negate anything. We're just exploring to see if there's any sense of identification with our experience. And if
Yeah,
you,
no, there is no identification with it. It's just, it is there, like something is there.
hmm,
I can see it's not me, definitely. The idea of me running around and doing my thing, being separate from everything and the center of the universe,
mm-hmm,
that's absolutely not the case. But something that's what I told before, but that is awareness.
mm,
But then I started questioning that is a mental projection of something. But then when I go, like, I can't say it is awareness. I can say, like, we are saying beingness.
as we did before, I would try to drop all labels of any of these things because it's so easy to get hung up in, is it awareness? Is it consciousness? Is it
Mhm.
beingness? Is it the big I
Can we,
am?
yeah, can we say that there is something like would,
We're not negating anything about or denying anything about your experience. So if you have physical sensations that seem like they're in the body, we're just exploring what those physical sensations really are in your experience. If you hear a bird outside the window, rather than just labeling it bird, we're experiencing what the actual sound is in its most raw and unfiltered experience. And the same thing, if there's something that feels more subtle than the gross bodily sensations, we're not denying that that sensation is there either, but just as dropping the label of dog barking or bird tweeting, we're dropping the label of this is beingness, or this is I am, or this is awareness, and just experience whatever is there to be experienced. And with all of these things, the implication is, are they just impersonal experiences, Or is there some level of subtle identification with them? And are they in somehow reinforcing a sense of selfhood?
This could have been very well mind attempt to grab onto something
Mm.
and yeah, make it into this is me.
Yeah. So just notice anytime that urge happens or that automatic process starts to meify a sensation, and then briefly turn inward and look to see if that's true. Is there anything in your direct experience right now that indicates that this is a me or this is a my? Could it just be another thought? Can anything be found right now that's claiming ownership?
What comes up here is yes, this is awesome. Um, but on a relative level, I have to I have to identify it's something in order to live the life here. Like that just came up.
Okay, that's
I know it's a thought.
and that the functioning will still happen. The the fear behind that thought that I can't function from an open space is just another way of reinforcing that sense of self. Of we sometimes personify the ego in this way, but it's like the ego is trying to preserve itself and say, no, no, you need me, but we don't. All it does is get in the way and obstruct. It ties you up in knots instead of letting you just freely move throughout the world. The ego ties your shoelaces together before you stand up.
I watched that last week too. The body just gets up and does what it needs to do.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it does feel like it's some kind of artificial intelligence that does functions by itself.
It is. It absolutely is.
Yeah, it does feel like we are, in a way, like robots. I mean, we are programmed with, I mean, now I'm going back into the story, but it does feel like I just programmed that way. And thinking, one good insight that I had last week was that thinking is directing the experience. That's what's happening. It is direct experience. But the content of the thought, what thought is saying, is pure concept. So
Yes.
that was a big aha moment for me because I didn't distinguish between the two. It was just thinking, but it's obvious now the difference. Thinking is fine, just it's another sense. It does what it does, but the content doesn't have to be believed or even paid attention to. I mean, I kind of try to scan it. Is it useful? Is it not useful? Also, it was interesting to see. I wanted to remember uh, uh, to do something, either to call a friend or to take some food from the fridge, whatever. And I'm like, if I forget, for example, to call the friend, how can I even be feeling guilty or be blamed for? The thought just never came. It just never came to the mind, and I can't make it come. I can't make it go. So where is my volition in calling a friend? If the thought doesn't show up to say, "Hey, call the friend," like it just won't happen.
Right. You're so right.
And then we get all, we get into guilt and shame and blame and like, how is it valid if we don't have control of a thought to tell us or our instinct or that urge that comes? I notice in the morning, I think it's the temperature change or it's a hormone, some kind of hormone. I just get the urge to get up.
Mm-hmm.
There, there is no thinking. I just get up because the urge is there. And then the mind says, oh, I got up because I need to do this.
Exactly.
Anyways, it's becoming like that has been noticed more and more. And
It's all spot on.
Yeah, so where is the I that decides to call a friend?
Can it be experienced? Can you find it?
No, it's just a thought.
Mm-hmm. And do you have any responsibility for creating those thoughts?
Not at all. There is something I noticed a couple of months ago. I don't see it lately, but it may be useful to ask you about that.
Mm.
I was noticing, for example, I'm cooking. I'm in the kitchen cooking, but that urge, that seeking urge, is very strong here. It hasn't been as strong lately. It's more like curiosity. But a couple of months ago, I would notice I'm cooking in the kitchen, but there is such a strong energy pushing me to get through that task as fast as possible so I can sit down and watch some kind of non-duality video or something like that. And that energy felt so strong. It was like a bully. It reminded me of a bully pushing me and pulling me to it was like there was someone literally pushing and pulling like a bully. And I wondered about that. Like, it's not a thought, it's more energetic. What would that be about?
Well, you can look into that. Notice my 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 guess in that moment is that there was probably some form of, well, let me back up a little bit. So a lot of our seeking energy comes because we are unhappy with something, or there is discomfort in the body, as we have spoken about last time. And so we seek because we hope to find some sort of relief, some sort of solution. We want to finally get the thing that's going to make us feel eternally better. And so in that moment, the necessity of having to cook was like an obstacle to feeling better, because I suspect if you could go back to that moment and feel into the body, not only would you have felt that bullying push to quick, get the cooking done so we can go seek and watch a video, but I think you would probably have found that even before that, there was a discomfort in the body. There was an emotional undercurrent of something unpleasant that you had to um, you had to try to seek um, to do away with. And so that there's that discomfort in the body, a feeling of sadness or anxiety or fear or frustration or something that's really unpleasant. And then the thought that watching that video might bring some relief, just like if you had a really bad headache and you wanted to take an aspirin, the thought of, I just have to get to that bottle and get that aspirin in me so I can get some relief. That video was the same sort of promise to you. And so there was such impatience at having to cook and wait to prolong that possibility of relief. That's my guess in that moment. If you if you could have gone back there, I suspect that's probably what you would have been experiencing.
So it doesn't really matter what was the pull towards. It could have been as well to go do some shopping and anything. So it just happened that it was, in my case, non-duality video, but it's not any more. It's not any better than shopping or alcohol or whatever people tend to distract themselves with. It's just distraction and trying to find relief. It's just that some people, in some people, it manifests. It manifests like spirituality. It's almost like addiction.
Mm, not almost like it can be
It
very
is
much an
addiction,
addiction.
eh?
Yes.
Mm. Yeah, that is really something.
Um, yeah,
We
no,
think it's something noble, and it's actually addiction.
it is. Arguably, it's slightly healthier for the body than turning to some harder drugs or alcohol or
Yeah.
things. But and depending, you might end up getting some benefit out of it in the long run, but it's only when that seeking drops that, that's the irony, is that, you know, drugs and alcohol don't really provide ultimate relief until you you stop using them. And then it's like, oh, I feel so much better now that I'm not on that cycle of having to have more and more. And the same thing goes for seeking, that we have to drop that seeking in order to feel the liberation of just being in the moment and just being with what is. The seeking keeps you on that endless treadmill of trying to find that one more thing, that that one more insight that somebody's going to tell me and that's going to ring a bell. And ironically, all we have to do is just come back to the present moment and look to see, who is it that thinks they're going to become enlightened? Who is it that thinks they're going to be better after watching 50 more non-duality videos? That's all.
Yeah, it is more like urge. I don't even feel I don't have any say in it.
Yeah.
It just what like as same as the thought. It just comes up. It's like that pull. It just makes the body do certain thing, and like I'm just giving up.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure
It does what it does.
it does. And I'm sure you get, some sort of dopamine release thinking about doing it, and then some sort of, benefit when you watch it, that it feels like there's a moment of relaxation. And I think the difference of watching non-duality videos and things like that, as opposed to maybe, drinking or like heroin or something, is that there is there can be something like an internal resonance when we hear something that seems true, even when it's not in our direct experience in that moment. Like last week you had mentioned, this feeling of this memory from when you were 2, I think you had said
Yeah,
you had that. And it's that sort of thing that sometimes you'll hear somebody talk about and it resonates and you go, I do kind of have a vague hint of what they're talking about, even if I can't experience it directly in day to day. There's something about that sounds true. And I had had the same thing. I had had so much anxiety and stuff growing up, and especially in my late teens and 20s. And when I had gotten my first book on Zen, and I remember I read that book, and I was always a terrible flyer. I was like, every time I got on a plane, I thought like, okay, this is really going to be it. I'm going to die. Like this is it. And I was reading Zen Flesh, Zen Bones on the way on a plane ride, and it was the first time I flew with no anxiety. There was something in just reading that just resonated so strongly and felt so like this is home, this is right, this is true, that um there can be something that, and I don't know if it's just a mirror neuron thing where you're hearing other people and it's triggering these, special neurons in our brain that fire to give us a similar experience to what they're experiencing, or if it's because it does remind us of something from our childhood or something back before the sense of self was solidified. Um, but there can be something, and so I'm not saying to never watch videos or anything like that, but and I still, I'll still watch people's videos that because I find it, especially in guiding and stuff, I think it's useful to hear other people's experiences and to see how other people approach them because we only know the experiences that we've had. And so it's always good to be able to get more of a view on how other people experience things and what works for them and what doesn't. But there's no seeking energy behind it. It's like it's curiosity. It's yeah, it's like an interest in the topic as opposed to I need to watch this video to get something out of it. And that's a very
Yeah,
different level.
craving, desire, right?
Yeah.
That craving is not healthy, but I don't think it's unhealthy to be curious and want to explore and just, you know, it's just interesting to some people. It is interesting to me. I just feel it hasn't been like craving lately, but it was before for sure. Last week was actually pretty good with direct experiencing. I would ground myself, bring myself back, and kind of it was much more enjoyable. And I can find humor in the whole thing now. It's just sometimes it's so funny, and it must be healthy because it relaxes that seeking that is so like it just, oh my goodness, this is just funny.
Beautiful. Yeah,
And like, who does it anyway?
exactly. It's just seeing over and over again. Is there anyone
But
who's doing any of this? Yeah.
yeah, but at least in my case, I need to be coming back to it. I hear people say, once you see it, that's it. But in my case, it just seems like I see it and then I go back and then I see it. And I have to constantly, not constantly, but frequently. It's so easy to be sucked back into that. Pranila was asking about participant and authentic. I don't know if you are familiar with that. And yeah, it's just like you become ego, little person participating, and then you kind of have a big picture and you are authentic. But then it's not hard to be sucked back into, like same as you are watching the movie and you get so involved, and I don't even know if it's a goal to never be so involved. I don't know. Like,
Yeah, you'll find what your experience feels, basically you'll find what happens. It's just such an impersonal process. Even though it seems like it's the most personal thing, we're delving really deeply into our psyche and into our experience. But ultimately it's all to find that there's nobody there anyway. It's completely impersonal. It's all happening of its own volition, just like when you lie in bed and wait, and next thing you know, you're getting up. Next thing you know, you're waking up. Next thing you know, you're realizing that
Mhm.
there's no self. And rather than
Mhm.
saying, well, I think I'd like to have mostly no self, but maybe occasionally play the role and try to, that's all, that's all the mind trying to navigate its way through. And,
Yeah, yeah.
no, whatever's going to happen is what's going to happen. The fact that you are doing these practices and reached out and are doing these meetings and all of this, that's all part of this completely impersonal awakening that's happening. And
I feel I'm dropping my intention to stop seeking, because me trying to stop seeking was making it worse.
yeah,
I,
yeah, just notice when you have an urge to watch a video, if it is coming from a curious place or if there is a feeling of discomfort in the body that you're
Mhm.
looking to distract from.
Mhm.
Yeah, just get really curious about what is driving me to click on this next video.
There is some curiosity, and I don't know if it's okay if I ask.
Of course.
I know this is all mind trying to project, probably grab onto something, but my understanding of Pranila's work is you can be in the ego, and then you can be the witness, authentic one, right? But then she's talking about the gap too. I'm very curious about the gap. What would be the gap, and can this body mind experience the gap? And what would be the gap? If we can be experiencing with this body mind, because we have these five senses plus our mind, like, what experience is the gap? What is the gap about? This is not so much craving. This is the curiosity. I'm just so interested in that. I don't know why. I don't. I won't even try to explain it. But I have such a curiosity to understand. To understand. I would love to experience it, obviously, but that is kind of a drive force for me. And if you don't mind saying something about that.
It's funny because I know I know she talks about that, and I do not want to misquote or I have to do
No,
better
no,
with repeating this
just your
quote.
understanding
Yeah,
of it.
yeah. It's interesting because see that I had in my experience of going through, doing all of this work, I actually wasn't aware of the gap between the two. It was not as a dynamic state anyway. For me, it was as you described, this kind of flipping back and forth between realizing that there was no self and then getting lost back up in the stories again.
Mhm.
And that is a really, really common thing. I mean, that's, from what I hear, most people talk about that. I think Alana has a video called Falling that talks about that. And it even happens after you have had a shift. A lot of times people will still have these periods for weeks or months where they flip back and forth in and out. And it is still possible for people who, um, stop any sort of work in the awakening process to just go off and after a year or two seem to, they'll think, oh, I've lost it, because they've gotten completely re-identified because you've been identified for decades. And now we're just starting to loosen that up and you're seeing it for yourself. Um, so for me, I would say at this point, just being aware of when you are feeling identified, coming back to into the body to see, well, what feels identified right now. And by doing that, you are coming back to more of an observer state, more of that authentic outside state, because you're having this kind of meta view of experience, as opposed to being locked into the identification with thinking. You're taking that step back, and you're able to witness the thinking. But then again, like I had mentioned last week, you can also notice that witness state is itself often just a thought. There's like an infinite regression that you can go back to, where you can see the self, and then, oh, no, wait, I'm witnessing that, and then, oh, wait a minute, well, now I'm realizing that I'm witnessing that. And so it's like this infinite thing where you're stepping back further and further.
So what would be the gap?
So again, I when she talks about that, I don't remember exactly how she uses it in the first Fetter context, because that was something that I know she's talked about, the gap in each of the fetters, and I had talked about it or learned about it more in like 4 and 5 and beyond. It wasn't something that I had worked with directly, so I'm not comfortable paraphrasing her use.
That's okay. That's okay. I just
Yeah, yeah. No, I can find out more about, like, I'll get more information on her specific way of using it for next time, and then I can always answer that question in better detail next time, because I don't want to steer you wrong in terms of how she deals with it.
that's okay. It was just something that came to my mind and that I was thinking about.
Yeah, yeah. But it's, again, my suggestion at this point is just to notice that difference. And I can't remember if that's what she's pointing to there or not. And again, I don't.
I think that's something completely different.
Okay.
That experiencing through this mind body, you can just that would be my question, right? You can be in the ego or you can be in authentic. Authentic meaning you are watching from the fifth floor of the building and you are not identifying with this character. But then there is something else beyond that. So, anyways,
I don't know.
I think I have a lot of things to clean up here, so I better focus. I better focus today, right now, this moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what my mind does. You see, it always tries to go somewhere to grab something to, yeah.
And there
Uh,
are very useful elements there. I mean, she has really brilliant insights, and she is so good with so much of the way that she explains these things and lays them out and creates these frameworks. I think she's absolutely amazing with all of that. Um, just notice when you're doing that, if it's because the concept really resonates with you and really seems like it's something that is helpful for you in your experience, or if it's just another clinging on to, well, this is going to fix me, this is going to be the thing, that's going to be, so watch your motivation for collecting, um for collecting techniques and conceptualizations.
yeah, even though I do tend to go simpler lately, like anytime I hear a lot of conceptual thinking and concepts, I just find myself, I can't even grasp what that person is saying. So that's why direct experiencing felt so good. It's so simple. It's so simple. There is nothing there but, okay, back, seeing, thinking, hearing. It's just back. So that does feel good and right, and
That's
at
beautiful.
least for now, that may be a way to go.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it's this impersonal thing that's it's going to happen how it happens.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
there's no reason to force it or push against it or do anything.
But you see, even talking to anybody reinforces that separate self. I mean, no wonder it's so ingrained in us. Like we should be by ourselves in silence for a long time in order to give this a chance to kind of stabilize. As soon as I go out to work and whatever, it will be, hey, this I'm this character, and you do your thing, you play your role, and you are back. Like you, it's amazing. Like you can't be out of it in a way because you are just in a way part of it. And do
Yeah.
we even want to? Like we need to play our roles.
You can practice this though, and also play your roles at the same time. And look at Angelo DeLillo. He's still a practicing. I assume you're familiar with Angelo.
Yes, yes,
Yeah, I mean,
yes.
he's a practicing anesthesiologist, and he's completely awake and still totally functions in a very stressful, I'm sure, context where he has to, take into account people's very complicated medical histories and all of that, and provide potentially life ending medications, if he gets it wrong. Um,
Yeah.
so you can. The thing to do, is when you're working, practice that direct experience, even at first in downtimes, like when you're, if you're at a desk writing something, if you're walking around or whatever in that environment, drop into the direct experience then, or use, like I had mentioned, the see, hear, feel technique, something like that while you're walking through, and then start to notice when you are talking to people. It takes a while to get used to, but you can, when you're talking to somebody, actually have that sort of secondary
Mm.
watcher thing, just watching
Mhm.
the words come out of the mouth, and it's coming out of your mouth, quote unquote, and it's just feels very, very strange to notice that you can actually completely converse without feeling completely identified with this person speaking and this body that's here. And it just takes practice to bring it into social situations, but it is
It does
doable.
happen. It does happen here for sure. Sometimes it feels like who is talking? Like the sound of my voice sounds so strange. It's like a third person.
Yeah,
Like sometimes it does, but it all happens by itself. I can't say that there is any volition there, but I do experience those moments where I almost look at myself as someone familiar, but you know, in a way, a stranger.
absolutely. Yeah, when I sit here hearing these words, I mean, they're just as much of a shock here as, as a surprise here as they are when you're hearing them. And
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
it's very absurd. It's a very absurd situation to be in, to be honest.
But
Um,
this is so refreshing to find humor in this. Seriously, like because probably I was so serious about that for so long. Like seeing humor in it is so it's lightening the search, and it becomes more like a game, like a play, not in a like it just
no, it should
what
be.
else is there to do? Like the other day, I was thinking, like, stop searching or whatever, I was kind of, and then what else is there to do? It's almost like,
I'll tell you, once you're on the path, it's really hard to get away from it. It's like once the
yeah,
thing is started, it's just gonna do it. And for many years, off the path, on the path, off the path. And no matter how far I strayed from it, it was like something would just pull me back in. And it's like there's yeah, I can't define it. It's like the mind wants to say that it's some sort of a some sort of pull but I have no idea why it works or how it works, but everybody seems to experience it.
Yeah, interesting enough, like I've seen the meeting that you guys had. Vince, like I worked, so I couldn't join, unfortunately. So I watched just the very beginning, and there was a lady that said that all 10 feathers fall for her. And I was like, why is she in the meeting? Like, what brings you, like, I was just curious, what brings people that came to that point, like with all feathers falling off, to come to a meeting like that. So I mean, probably there is no reason, it just happens, whatever. But it's interesting to see that even for people like that, it's they are still there. I mean, participating and curious. She did mention that she's still learning. Uh, And as you said, you watch videos to see how other people experienced it, because we all experience it in different way, and we can always, I guess, learn from each other.
Yeah. I look at it as the kind of the metaphor that came to me in terms of, especially in terms of guiding, for other people, is that, so the metaphor I have is, if you have a pantry and the only thing in the pantry is ketchup, there's only so much, there are only so many meals that you can make using ketchup, right? But if you add one
None.
more, none really. But if you add, potatoes to the pantry, well, now you have two things. Maybe you could create something more. And every little thing that you add to the pantry creates the variety of options in which you can combine those things to create something new. And so for this, it's like, because all of this comes out of wherever, it's all based off of experience that has been had throughout the lifetime. There's like, it's like, whether we talk about the brain or the whatever, we're constantly influenced by absolutely everything everywhere that's happening. And I wouldn't be able to talk about Zen koans had I never read about Zen koans or
Yeah,
tried
yeah,
Zen
yeah.
koans. And so the more things that I hear, like the more ways of describing things that I get, the more ways that more recipes can be made in order to serve the people who I'm guiding in ways that might, fit their tastes, basically.
Yeah.
So,
More reference points you have. Yeah,
yeah,
definitely. Yeah, awesome.
yeah. Well, this has been really good. This has been really good.
Yes, yes, I'm really grateful for our meetings, and yeah, I it really gets more clear how the mind starts to grab onto something to identify with. Okay, yeah, I'm not that, but I may be this, I may be that.
Yep. And we just stay vigilant and
Something is
check out all of
here.
them.
I don't know what I am, but I am.
There can be that feeling. And then we just go, well, what is that? Where is it felt? Because it's got to be felt someplace. If you can, as we talked about last week and this week, there are only 6 different things that you can experience. So if you have a sense, I am, it's showing up in one or more of those. So get detailed and curious and just find out where it's showing up, and then investigate, what am I experiencing? If it's the fact that I am here, and then you track it down to being the sensation of your butt on the chair, well, is that really you, or is it just sensations of pressure happening in space? So we just get really curious.
Yeah. Direct experiencing is really, really valuable. It's a tool to bring you back, bring you back, bring you back. No matter how far you may feel lost in thought, in concept, it just brings you back.
You're right. I love it. Good. Do you have anything else before we wrap up today?
No, feels complete.
Yeah. I really look forward to next time, and this has been so much fun.
Yes, me too, and we'll see how next week develops. And
Definitely let me know if something comes up in the meantime.
I will.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Todd.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good seeing you.
Good to see you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.